much of the... So a very warm welcome here at CIO Berlin. Very warm welcome world. We are connected to everywhere, hopefully. We are celebrating our 22nd birthday with a new platform. And I want to welcome Barbara, our digital curator.
Thank you, Felix. And I want to introduce you to Felix Hoffmann, our chief curator.
So CIO Berlin became in the last 22 years one of the leading institutions for photography, more and more reflecting all aspects of the lens-based media. What is lens-based media? So everything what is going through this small thing in front of a camera, in front of a projector, in front of a film-making thing, in front of our phones we have in our hands, and everything is going through this lens. And photography is more and more going in this direction and interaction with the question, what is lens-based media? So why are we doing something like CO Digital? So we are working on, in the last year, on something like a sibling for this institution. And why something apart from the additionally that what happens here on the walls in the Hardenbergstraße in the former America House. So during pandemia, we learned that a lot of museums and other colleagues transformed these exhibitions into something you can see all over the world. They filmed the exhibitions, they placed it in the internet, and sometimes we looked at it because it was such a poor time without cultural institutions. So we felt a little bit this might be something wrong. And this is the reason why we were thinking, why not doing something like inventing a CIO Berlin sibling? Because in the last decade, there is more and more interesting art what we are not showing here in the America House and what we cannot bring on display there. So the physical space for an exhibition here is limited, and it felt a little bit painful in the last decades not to show this brilliant, fascinating artistic imagery accessible for a global audience in forms of, now we try in forms of texts, in forms of interviews, podcasts, and videos to combine these two worlds together. And we found a lot of interesting mentors to help us to bring or to provide more content layers and to connect the two worlds together. So our idea is now to examine and to extend the meaning of photography, or to turn it upside down. Will photography be absorbed more and more into the digital and to virtual forms? Will photography be absorbed more and more into and from the digital world? And if so, what are the implications for a venue for contemporary photography and our institution like CIO Berlin? Where's the front and where's the back of this? Where's the front and where's the back of this kind of discussion? So photography for CIO Berlin and us is a kind of melting pot coming out of the logic of photography and, what I already mentioned, lens-based media. And how can we integrate moving images as a result of TikTok or Instagram, augmented reality, virtual reality, and all the questions around? How can we integrate videos and moving images? How can the logic of extensions happen in our program now in the digital world? This is a challenge which is at the same time our goal. So at the beginning, I want to point out, I would particularly really thank our supporters. The Beisheim Foundation especially, the DKB, the Deutsche Kreditbank, and the Aventis Foundation for their initiative experimental #Neuland Digital at CO Berlin. This generous support has made CO Digital possible, and we thank you so much for your trust and this productive collaboration. And I personally thank, besides Barbara, our wonderful CO Berlin team and the so-called digital task force, especially Luisa Seelis, Magnus Pölcher, and Katrin Schöneck. And now I hand over to Barbara, who is giving a deeper insight what we have on our row for the next decade. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Let's start with the beginning, which is of course, woo! This is fine, okay. Sort of.
Berlin, an exhibition space for exploring and experiencing the medium of photography. We believe photography is the mirror of society and its playground. That's why we founded CO Berlin 2 decades ago. To date, we've organized 250 solo and group shows and 1 new platform, CO Digital, which is not just a platform. It's a sibling of CO Berlin. Why did we do that? Over the past few years, things have changed enormously. New platforms, formats, and technologies have emerged, all involving lens-based media. The digital is blossoming, and we embrace it. So, what exactly is CO Digital? It's a virtual space dedicated to the exploration of digital visual cultures. It deals with central issues of nowness through an incubator program, essays, and participatory events involving artists, technologists, activists, digital natives, and of course, you. Every single year, CO Digital focuses on one specific topic, responding to the urgency of the moment. In the incubator program, artists develop new commissions to rehearse the world as if. And in participatory events, artists, technologists, and activists enable people to explore new social imaginaries. So, the works on CO Digital are the mirror and the playground of an increasingly digital society. With this approach, CO Digital continues what we once started with CO Berlin, for the analog to stay and the digital to come.
Well, this was, we were fearing this moment and exactly happened just at the beginning. So, okay. Let me pass these things. Today, well, thanks Felix for the introduction. Thank especially all the technicians for being wonderful and like managing the whole thing. It's been a bit of a challenge today, but we've managed. And of course, all the team for the support. Today, I'm gonna be presenting, sorry, this doesn't seem to stay. So today I'm gonna be presenting what is CO Digital, why are we doing this, where does this come from? So I'm gonna be guiding you through this talk, which has like a lot of people and it's gonna be really packed. So we're gonna have divided in 2 parts. We're gonna start like presenting a little bit what is the program itself and then moving into one of the projects that we have, which is the Parareal series, and we're doing a bit of screenings and a Q&A. So let's start with the beginning. So as you know, this is the new platform that we've been building over the last year. We're really excited about showing this to the world. This little baby comes to life now. And of course, CO Berlin, as Felix pointed out, is a photography museum. And this, of course, we go out a bit of our comfort zone to explore what is the expanded versions of photography, and of course, what is the hypervisuality of the digital media. So every year, CO Berlin has an annual theme, and we use it as somehow like as a compass to articulate all the program. And this year is new values. So let's start by the main question, like what is actually value? Value is a very complicated notion, and we understand it almost always as a factor of exchange. And the status is almost always represented by money. So, but the question, I think I have jumped one, maybe here. One question has disappeared. So normally the idea is that value is always represented by money, and like we miss a little bit of the point of like what is value in plural sense. We understand that value equals money and equals at the same time labor, because that comes from like Marxist theory, etc. When we think of like values in plural sense, all of a sudden we come up like with a gigantic pot of ideas like ecological values, we come with aesthetic values of art, we understand what family values are. All these ideas are really difficult to encompass within the traditional ways of understanding value. So, like what is value beyond the market is not just a question that is interesting by itself. It also points out to the level of entanglement there is between the notion of value and capitalist thought. So how many times have we heard that it's actually easier to understand, to imagine the end of the world before the end of capitalism? So when we want to talk about values, and I again use this plural sense, we set ourselves into this quest to understand and to think about the world otherwise. So to reframe the notion of value beyond the market is also to compose different social imaginaries. And what is a social imaginary? Well, this is the way that we imagine our social life, how we behave in a certain context, how do we want to behave in a certain context perhaps, and how we want to intend to live our life. So, and I ask you, if we put money aside, then what would you do? What would happen if we actually think of like stop paying attention to productivity as the only source of value? Or what would entail if we think about like well-being as a form of wealth itself? So reframing value beyond the market requires also this reconstruction of a social imaginary. And of course, why imagination is so important in this framework. So when we imagine something, we're also staring at the world critically, because if we imagine a different world, we're also critically engaging with what we have here before and what is our surroundings. So if we propose an alternative, we're also world building an option. This act of world building is impressed, of course, by our own value system, or by the value system that we want to have, or the one that we hate. So value systems are always these guidelines that help us understanding how the world that we want to be, that we want to be living. So if we see this image here, which is this basic, very classic solar punk imagery, where green energy have completely reimagined the cities in a post-crisis situation. So this depiction, what makes us understand and re-understand what a city could be, and based on an alternative social values, no, in a future post-crisis. So this act of world building represents a social imaginary, and those social imaginaries would always be grounded in a particular value system. Probably everyone knows by now this quote, but I think it's always very interesting to go back to it, because Judith Butler, this gender theorist, says that language has the power to create the effects that it names. And therefore, if we want to subvert this capitalist dominance over the language of value, we need to start speaking about economic diversity. If we separate value from the capital, we no longer have a vocabulary that is captured by capitalism. But we can represent, therefore, a fluid mode of exchange, and collaterally, we also could start world building an alternative. So by queering economic languages, we will be breaking binary oppositions between capitalism and non-capitalism. So in this framework, value would become a practice that is flexible, and this breaks apart with this monolith conception of value. And why is, of course, important today to talk about new values? Because, of course, we live through a pandemic, all of us. We have this permanent feeling of political stagnation, about like there's always an economic upheaval that is going to happen, is global warming. So there's always a feeling of crisis, or a feeling of crisis to come. And many people call it differently. For example, Geert Lovink, one of our mentors, call it the stack of crisis. So through these experiences, we've also come to realize that what matters now is not always measured in monetary terms. So many of us have already had the experience of, like, during the pandemic, having Zoom calls with parents, like juggling with toddlers, and all of a sudden realizing that care labor is actually very important. So sustainability, care, even freedom of expression has become tremendously important in the way that we determine the way that we live our life. So if we queer the understanding of value, value becomes plural and the social imaginary is manifold. And for example, if you want to imagine the future, and in this post-crisis future, you could put motherhood at the center of social life. You would be able of putting at the highest of your pyramid of social values ecology, or use social innovation as a currency. So in answering actually what is new values, we realize that the question, of course, is much more complex, and it offers this kind of rich milieu of potential that let us shake the roots that ground our social imaginaries. For some reason, does this appear? Well, it was here? I have no idea. Okay, mysteriously, this was an image before, which we don't know where it is, and it was an image from Space War, which is one of the first video games ever existed, and it is not only important by being the first one, but also because it really triggered a certain amount of changes that were only not related to the game. So games are always considered like entertainment or distractions, but some of the games are certainly something else. No, like if we can. They become forms of creative expression. They are tools for creative, like conceptual and critical thinking. So when we use these like gameful strategies, we can challenge ideas, beliefs, and social expectations. So for example, this game that is now, unfortunately cannot see, but it was like really basic and really black and like really simple gameplay. The game not only became the first time that we were able of experiencing potentially what would be driving a spaceship, but also it transformed what become computers afterward, like computers a decade later become continuously having a monitor, for example, and also became very influential in movies like Star Wars. So the games, of course, introduce new perspectives on events that might or might not happen. At this point, had happened. So in a way, they are always a game is able to raise awareness about an event or a situation and help us to imagine actually how our subjectivities could be at a point in time. So games are able of subverting important in this program because it's our method to rehearse these alternative social imaginaries and the way that experience these alternative forms of value. And in so doing, we're going to be able of investigating what values are and what values could be. And of course, how does all of this look like in CO Digital, no? Like the question. So under the umbrella of this annual theme, and this year, of course, new values, we have a program divided in two parts. The one is like an incubator program for digital artists, where we're going to be commissioning new artworks and offering mentorship along the way. And then we have a constant program throughout the year that delves into the specific notions that are entangled into the whole program. This year, for example, we have a peer-to-peer residency led by Taeyeon Choi, that invites artists, writers, technologists to collaboratively think of the future of internet. And to do so, we're going to be having lectures and workshops about computing, about accessibility, about identity, and about environment. We also have gaming groups that there are a series of workshops that delve into what does it mean to game, and in particular parts of the gaming experience, for example, in-game photography. And the last but not least, we're going to have the Parareal, which is a web series that delves into different subcultures that live their livelihoods online in spite of the platform exploitation. And today we're going to watch the first episode. We're going to have a talk with VR documentarian Joe Hunting and the New Design Congress, who are going to be also our mentors. And all these programs start around midsummer, late summer, so please stay tuned in and see what's going to happen. And of course, our website plays a huge role in the way that we experience these projects. And for this reason, there's no better person to explain how the website is going to be looking than Studio Hato from London. And here, please welcome Matt Clark to the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. And wait, I'll just move forward. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so thank you for coming, and thank you, CEO, for inviting me. So my name is Matt. I'm a designer at Hato, and myself, alongside the rest of the team who are tuning in online from London, we worked on the strategy, concept, design, and development of the new CO digital platform, which for me, personally, having been able to see the project from the early stages, it's so exciting now to see it going live and launching. So just to give you a bit of context, Hato is a design studio, a publishing house, and a concept store. We work in a variety of different mediums, such as creating brands, campaigns, printed matter, exhibitions, design thinking, and also digital products. And we are really interested in working within the culture and collaborating with artists that share similar values and goals, which is ultimately to connect a genuine community, leaving a legacy that adds value. So for us, it was such a pleasure to work with the CO team, as we felt there was like a really interesting overlap of these values. So I'm going to quickly talk about the platform, showing you how it works, and specifically introduce the concept of clusters, which is a really important aspect of the platform. And it's also just something that we're really excited to show you. So this is a brief click-through of the platform, starting from the homepage, and then featuring a banner with this year's theme, which is new values, featuring the artists from that annual program, and then viewing the upcoming events, and then discovering an artwork here, and delving a bit deeper into its relevant information. So for us, this would be an example of like a linear journey. So moving from the homepage to an artwork. And for us, when working on the early stages, we believed there was a really interesting opportunity to explore a deeper connection with the content that exists on the CO digital platform and will exist. So with such a range of content that is on the CO digital platform and that will be uploaded, there's things like digital artworks, essays, video, events, and so much more. It could almost become slightly overwhelming for a visitor with where to start. And for us as designers, what we found really interesting as a problem to tackle and think about was, with so much information, where do we get meaning from all of this stuff? So with working with the CO team in the early stages of the project, we spoke about how CO Digital could be used as a tool. And as a tool that could be used to try and make sense of the digital. So for us, a key aim was to encourage visitors of the platform to be less passive and more active. So in the same way we might think about a physical gallery space and designing it in a way that really celebrates the artworks, we began thinking about applying the same principles to a digital platform. So these are various different examples that we looked at of visualizing what that digital space might look and feel like. So as a studio, we've had a long-standing interest in mapping art digitally, and these are some examples of just previous projects where we've worked with artists, galleries, and museums to explore that idea. But for us, CO Digital posed a really exciting opportunity to really develop this thinking and these concepts a bit further. So this is a very early example of a design that we put together from the early stages of the website. And in the concept phase, we took a lot of inspiration from platforms such as like Tumblr or Twitter or Arena. These are all examples of what we would call like open platforms, where there is not essentially a central editor, but the content of the website is generated by its users. So which means it's constantly being added to and updated. So whilst this is not necessarily a new concept, we believe this could be a really interesting strategy of turning passive use of the platform, such as maybe just liking a post, into really active use, such as participating in an event or reading an essay. So this is where the idea of clusters came about, and the concept of clusters. And a cluster is the name given to a collection of content. So it's a key page of the CO Digital website. And clusters contain either images, text, or web links. So a cluster can be created by an artist, a mentor, or a curator. And they're defined as a collaborative system to organize media and ideas. So this means an artist could use a cluster just to make notes and write stuff down, or they might use a cluster as a way to document and present their research for a project in response to the theme of new values. So for example, this here is an example of a cluster from the artist collection Keiken. So a cluster can be open or private, which means it can be made public for visitors to add and contribute to. So for example, I might see an artist cluster, get really interested in what's being featured, and contribute an image or a reference that I think is relevant. So, and this helps to create a more active way of participating in CO Digital. So it allows visitors to see how artworks can develop over the course of the annual program, but it also allows artists to present their work to an audience. Importantly, it also means that artists can present their works in progress without the constraints of feeling they have to always show the final work. And for us, this was really interesting, as this then creates a dialogue between the artist, the mentor, the curator, and the visitor. So over time, as more people visit the platform and participate, these clusters will grow. Let's see if it plays. Yeah. So these clusters will grow, and content will be linked together, which will create this expansive network of projects, but also inspirations, which in itself adds value. And over time, the meaning of these different clusters will change, which crucially for us, this goes back to what we set out to explore as part of the platform, which was to try and make sense of the digital. So each time someone is uploading a new piece of content, that cluster is almost being repackaged or repurposed and reinterpreted. So please have a play and check out the platform and contribute to a cluster. We have one currently set up for this evening on the site link below at the bottom. So you can add any photos, notes, references, or just general thoughts, or maybe just anything, the way the internet is used, just upload pictures of your cats or something. But yeah, have a play and let us know what you think. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. We're going to continue now talking a bit more about the program. Hope you're not too bored. We're not going to continue explaining what is one of the core of the project, which is the incubator program. Normally, when we experience digital artworks, they come in this very kind of shiny, perfect envelope that we almost always experience, whether it be VR video or it's going to be an app or whatever. But we often miss the complexity of the projects. We almost never know how labor-intensive they are, or how much money actually they took to become. But we also miss the point of how many people actually is working with them. They always create these collaborative networks, and they always need a really long research. And that's why clusters for us became such an important tool when we were developing this project. And because especially we want to move away from the very static exhibition making within the digital, which is, as Felix said, normally very static, just pictures, etc., to create something that is more meaningful encounters with the audience. For us, the incubator program lasts between 6 months and a year, depending on the time frame. And we will have this year 3 mentors and 3 artists. So I'm going to do, first of all, introduce all the people that is going to be with us. And we see here it's going to be the mentors and like the artists. So let me pass now to Zoom call, which I guess is going to be here. Can you see this now? No. Could someone help with this? Could someone from the tech people could help me with this? Because now we only see this really small version of this. Sorry with all the technical problems. We're new to this. We're just learning. We now just see only this side, but we're missing like the big. They know that maybe like yet. Are you guys seeing this? No. Okay. Okay. You guys, I guess, see each other now, like all the artists. Going to see this weird thing now. So the plan is like everyone is going to introduce themselves if everyone is going to be there. So we start with the mentors, please, and then we go with the artists who will explain a little bit of the project that they are going to be developing this year. So let's close this. And no. Okay. Okay, finally again, sorry. MetaObjects from Hong Kong perhaps wants to start, if you guys want to tell a little bit of...
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, great. Yes, thank you, Barbara, for, first of all, inviting us to be a mentor as part of this incubator program. We're very excited. So we're MetaObjects. My name is Ashley Wong. I'm artistic director, and this is Andrew Crow, who's technical director of MetaObjects. And we're a studio based in Hong Kong that facilitates digital production with artists and cultural institutions. And we kind of develop long-term collaborations with the artists that we work with. For instance, we do a lot of 3D printing with Hong Kong-based artist Samson Young, and also we work a lot with Shanghai-based artist Lu Yang, whose artwork is in our background image, whose work is probably the most relevant to a lot of the artists' work, and that's part of the incubator. Lu Yang creates these digital avatars based on a hyper-realistic version of themselves, and basically is very interested in Buddhism and digital reincarnation. And we're working on a live motion capture performance that was also live streamed during the pandemic. And we'll have a new performance a network performance between dancers in Sydney at the Sydney Opera House in Hong Kong together, interacting in the same virtual environment. So we develop these kind of very close relationships with the artists where we develop the works on an iterative basis. And Andy is a software developer who will be consulting mainly on the technical aspects of the project and has worked on various kinds of technologies from 3D printing, AR, VR, and games artworks, and motion capture, software, and web development. For myself, I'm more on the curatorial and research perspective. So I have a PhD from the School of Creative Media at City University of Hong Kong. And I also work closely with the Research Network of Philosophy and Technology, and currently working on a book on economies of art and technology. And before that, we were both based in London. So We're kind of working very internationally as well. So we're just very excited to be, learning about the works of the artists and seeing how we can find ways to support their projects and find ways to collaborate.
Thank you, Ashley. Unfortunately, Geert Lovink couldn't join us today because he had COVID, like I guess half of the planet nowadays. And Cade, which is the extra mentor, will have him on stage later on after a short break. So we're going to go directly into the artists so you could see a little bit of what we're planning this year. So please, Ayoung, if you want to continue. Can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay.
let me share my desktop first. Hi everyone, this is Ayoung Kim. I'm a media artist based in Seoul. I like building speculative storytelling with various emerging media, as well as conventional video and moving image forms. I would like to introduce a previous project and one previous project and a project that I'm currently working on. Since 2020, I developed a fictitious place called Ceresal Underwater Lab for a series of speculative fictions. The series have been simulation of the near future around the decade after the COVID-19 global pandemic. One in the series, this is a re-up project called Ceresal POVCR. POVCR here is an acronym of point of view corrosive reality, and the title scratches both the conventional video making with the words like point of view and VCR, that is a perished medium that was widely used a few decades ago. In this project, invited players into the underwater environment. They are playing the Sohaila character, which is a Yemeni migrant who came to South Korea in 2018, fled from the Yemen war. In this Ceresal Underwater Lab, the lab manages an integrated process involving seaweed farming and cultivating seaweeds. Okay. I'm currently working on a project called Delivery Dancer, a multimedia project encompassing a video, game engine, 3D animation, and live action shooting, as well as developing a fictitious delivery app. During the pandemic, we all experienced the rapid expansion of delivery platforms worldwide. It was even extreme in Korea. There has been many social problems regarding the conditions of the delivery riders, especially the fact that the riders cannot be protected by the employment law, and the problem with the limitation of AI-driven navigation systems. As you might or might not know, current delivery apps don't support GPS-based navigation systems for the riders, but only guide straight lines from the pickup point to the destination. This means that the system doesn't really calculate the actuality of the road, and the riders tend to be late due to the system. And obviously they are not paid in the right wage. These days, I heard the riders excuse AIs when they are late. They tend to say, oh, I just did what the AI guided me to do. So this rating economy also makes the riders in the bottom of the class system of the gig economy. And the thing is that the delivery companies don't open the algorithms and how they develop the AIs and how they function. The riders navigate digital world as well as the physical world at the same time. And this in-between condition applies to everywhere in the current living conditions of the human beings. Here in the growing project, my agenda is revolving around platform labor, techno precarity, and the algorithmic governance that smears into our daily lives. The images are rearranged 3D elements captured with LiDAR scan technology that is used for autopilot cars. These are fictitious souls created by my team, rearranged 3D animation. And moreover, the GPS-based algorithms developed by delivery app companies are actively deployed in the warfare as well. As we have noticed in the Ukraine and Russia war, the GIS Arta, the AI that was used by Ukraine, provided the fastest and the most efficient weapon and route for the targets. During the CEO Digital Fellowship, I would like to dig into the algorithmic structure of the delivery app and the socio-political system behind it. And I would like to develop a playable app working on mobile devices. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ayoung. It was super nice to see a bit more of what you're planning. Now we're gonna go into I think Debbie is gonna be the next one. Do you want me to put the video as we said, or you wanna?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do it. Can't guarantee that it's gonna work well. Now I think is this here? Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to do this. We plan a different way. Okay. This is. Sorry, we tried this a million times before it was working. Of course, nothing is working now. Okay. Do you guys see this? No, here I haven't. We hear you really, like, wait a minute. Wait a minute, because we're not really hearing. No idea what happened now.
Shall I try to share the video on my end, if that would work?
Now you're there. Now this everyone, yeah. Yeah.
From walking and drawing maps like the map you see here from 2010 of the Singapore River. I started making it because I was perplexed how, despite the importance and sensuality of the titular Singapore River, very few Singapore. Hi, my name is Cade Diehm, and I'm an artist from Singapore. I'd like to thank CEO Berlin for having me as a part of this really exciting program. I'm really humbled to be working alongside such amazing artists such as Keiken and Ayoung, and I'm looking forward to speaking with all the amazingly knowledgeable mentors. Let me share a bit about what I do. As an artist, one of my main interests has been in mapping geographies, real and imaginary. What you're looking at now is a game I made in 2020 called The Legend of Debbie, and the legend here refers to this weird map legend of all the works that I've made in the past. It was screened as a gameplay video, by which I meant I recorded it playing it for live commentary, like a narrator telling the story to you, except that the commentary was partially fictional. It's always fascinated me how much a map can change one's perspective on the world, and how the maps we make can also visually reflect kind of the chasms in perspective and understanding from different people. A lot of my early works were informed by ideas from psychogeography, from walking and drawing maps like the map you see here from 2010 of the Singapore River. I started making it because I was always perplexed how, despite the importance and sensuality of the titular Singapore River, very few Singaporeans seem to know about its history, its actual location, or even its appearance. And so the maps I made and the archive of all the user-contributed narratives explore the site as a kind of psychogeographical fault line where the memories and dreams interact, merge or drift apart. Another special work to me is my kind of attempt to map out all of my dreams in a visual map or floor plan format. Here is 100 of my dreams from 2019 to 2013, recorded upon my waking moment. Because if dreams color your entire day and your worldview, shouldn't they be also worth trying to understand spatially? And I think the first step for me was to try to map it out. Over the years, the work I've made also included mapping out the typical family home in public high-rise housing in places such as Singapore and Seoul. I've also built life-sized bomb shelters based on the actual bomb shelters built within Singapore's public housing. In fact, today I'm recording it for this video from my parents' house, which also has this exact type of bomb shelter built into it. A kind of private and yet space that's never really seen from the outside, but it's also part of everybody's home. I suppose that a lot of how I choose to build my works in the past also came down to the modes of making that were available to me. When you talk of maps, you think of a symbolic representation of a space on something that's usually flat and 2D. And so I did start by making a lot of these flat maps. I also made objects and installations, but over the years, I really wanted to be also able to build my own world. And kind of the technology and the game engines today make it very much within the reach of artists who want to do it for themselves, even without computing, kind of formal, kind of computing maths background. And I realized it was possible for me to start producing this kind of immersive work for myself on my own. And for example, what you see here is Void, a game I started building first as a Kinect-based cave interactive, which was shown last year as a VR experience at the House of Electronic Arts in Basel. And Void is an experimental VR game that's taking you through a journey through the sea at night. There's no fixed narrative, there's no pathway you have to follow, you can go in any direction, you're just on a boat sailing through the night. It's a representation of a moment in time and space during the peak of COVID in Singapore, because in reality, I'm the full-time mother of a young baby, so I rely heavily on my parents' help for childcare. And so I was shuttling between the void decks of my house and their house. The void deck being this type of a certain type of ground floor space in public housing within Singapore. So the game tries to capture that experience, that journey, I would take in a poetic form. You sail between these void decks, that look like ruins in the sea of the night. And you see these faces, these glimmers of babies' faces in between. For this incubator, I'm looking forward to produce a work on the VR chat platform that will be about an idea that's been brewing for me for quite a long time. It starts in the bookstore at the launch of a book called New Horizon. I'm crazy about bookstores, and you can see here that in some of the other games, I also make rather elaborate bookstores. I'm looking forward to building an interactive world in which the maps are oriented all differently from how we know them, where all the spaces have swapped names. I'm thinking, is it possible for us to imagine a place on Earth that hasn't been discovered yet? What kind of new horizons could we imagine through virtual reality?
Wow. Yay. Thank you, Debbie. Thanks for the videos. Fantastic. And now we're missing. Here it is. We're missing Keiken, actually. Of course, they also got COVID, so they were going to be here with us today, and unfortunately couldn't join. So they will be digitally also, and they will be showing us, again, the project that they have on hands. Hi, Tani. So this is your turn now.
Hi, I'm sorry, my internet cut out just at the perfect timing, I think. I'm also sorry I couldn't be there today. I'm also unwell, but yeah, I'm just gonna share my screen. Give me 1 second. 1 moment. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Yeah, I think I can see it in the back there. Okay, cool. So great. So yeah, I'm Tani. I'm from Keiken. I'm 1/3 of Keiken. We're a collaborative practice. So it's myself and Hannah Omori and also Isabel Ramos. We've been working together as Keiken since 2015, and we're based between London and Berlin. So Keiken, our collective title, is the Japanese word for experience. So Hannah, who's not here today, but she's actually Japanese, so this is where we get the title from. But so Keiken means experience, which is essentially, it means for us that the lived experience is at the core of our practice. So whether that's exploring the nature of consciousness or pushing the boundaries of immersivity as well. So we are collaboratively building and imagining a metaverse to simulate new structures and ways of existing to test drive possible futures. So for us, the metaverse is a fully immersive virtual space of multiple worlds that allows us to become the architects and collaborators of the future. So it's really something that allows us to pierce our perception of reality and defy everything or all that we know. So we create these works through filmmaking, gaming, installation, extended reality, blockchain, and performance. And through these varied media, how societal interjection governs the way we feel, think, and perceive. So I'm going to do a quick spotlight on a recent work of ours, which is a game called Wisdoms for Love 3.0, which we made last year. It questions, explores, and uses blockchain technology and concepts, and also considers wisdom as a tool for growth and change, and proposes it as a form of currency to transact with, which could eventually be applied to the blockchain and integrated into future Web 3.0 technologies. It was originally an online decision-making game and non-fungible or NFT project. I thought I'd actually play you a bit of a video just to give you, I won't play it for too long, but just to give you all a bit of an idea. Bear with me a second. So let me make this full screen.
Each being is given a unique center point. From your center point, you weave a story of self. This center point will always be yours. It attaches you to the earth and positions your axis of existence.
Wisdoms for Love 3.0 is a decision-making game and NFT project inside an installation. It features an interactive sculpture. The game is set in a speculative world inside our metaverse. And it's really about exploring the bubbled up feelings, collective consciousness, and fervent beliefs of the contemporary moment. To begin the game, players must generate a unique username. Smooth Reality 374. Players have to work their way through a labyrinth of metaphorical decisions. The interactive sculpture is the map of the game and it tracks the player's journey. Do you take the path of the Divine Mother?
Become a human god.
Stay on your moral high horse.
Gods are no longer elsewhere. Instead, they stand on top of giant melting icebergs so that they can exist as high in the sky as possible.
The water runs, the water cries. It feels sadness and happiness, fear, joy, itami, yorokobi.
Okay, so now I'm gonna carry on with my presentation. 1 second. Yeah, so I'm actually gonna go in, just because I'm aware we might be short on time, I'm going to go straight into talking about our project for the incubator program for Code Berlin. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be developing a game for this program, and it's going to be the second episode in a series that we're working on called Morphogenic Angels. So the images that you can see are really kind of like very preliminary work in progress scenes, but I'll explain a little bit more about the project and then I'll maybe explain the images. So this series is set in a speculative future that explores what life could be like 500 years from now. So it's exploring this kind of new environment or futuristic environment where simulations are how angels or upgraded humans experience the world and their lives. So this kind of series is really exploring the representation of consciousness through these, especially in the images that you're seeing right now, is exploring the representation of consciousness through bubbles, which are flexible fields of view, which affect the shape of our movement and perception of the world around us, as well as also impacting the bubbles of others. So the series is also proposing how future technologies and simulations could allow us to see with greater clarity how our perspectives are formed and influenced through an alchemy of multiple perspectives interacting with one another. It also acknowledges the self is iterative and that our iterations or derivatives don't singularly grow or iterate forward. They divide and multiply outwards in all directions, creating a complex web of perception. So for CO Berlin, we're going to be working on a game that will likely kind of adopt existing gameplay that you might find in very like typical games. Maybe that's like a first-person shooter game or any other kind of game, but we'll be taking some of these kind of very typical actions and subverting them. So that might be taking things like where a character has the tool of a weapon to either to like shoot or to attack, instead of it having that typical reaction of the weapon actually inflicting violence. It might actually do something where a sound will come out that will actually subvert the situation. So that they might hear the voice of someone saying, "Help me," rather than actually hearing the sound of a gun being fired. That's just an example, but yeah, we're still kind of developing a lot of those things. And what you can kind of see in the image is this main character who's playing with their derivative selves, which are previous versions of themselves from the past, and they're watching the interplay of these interactions. So this is what they can see from above, but you will also be able to see the perspectives of the other characters as well, or the other derivatives too. So yeah, we're really excited to be part of this program and really looking forward to developing the game. So yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Dani. We're finally here. Sorry. So, I mean, now we're gonna go to questions. So if you are on the live stream, please go to the YouTube page, because there is one you can put the questions. Meantime, we're gonna go.
So there's a question coming from YouTube.
Oh.
Maybe you read it.
Yeah.
So we have a big audience all around the world, and they are chatting with us.
Do you run the platform on decentralized infrastructure in the future? That would be amazing. Not yet. That would take us many more months to prepare, but that would be fantastic. And of course, next year, in the future to come, we're really thinking about ways of like really disentangle ourselves from like commercial platforms. But this is still like a bit of a blur, but it will happen actually, hopefully, very soon also. Many questions from the floor, or to the artists, of course, who I'm gonna put them back if I can.
Any questions? I'm here with a microphone. I come over to you. No?
Quiet audience, I see. I mean, we could just leave it here, and we need like 5 minutes to set up, and then we're gonna continue with the Parareal series. Which is going to be screenings and an interview from VR chat to the real world. So I hope you join us for this experiment with the New Design Congress. So we're really, really happy to do this. Thank you all for having, I know Many of them are in Hong Kong, in Singapore, and in Korea, so it's really, really late for them. So let's give them the chance to go home now and to sleep. And we were going to continue in 5 minutes with the Parareal. So thank you all, and yeah. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second part of this launch party. We're going to now introduce you to the Parareal. The Parareal is a web series that we're producing together with the New Design Congress, who are also mentors in our incubator program. This web series is going to be releasing an episode almost once a month, more or less. If we manage, maybe a bit less, but more or less in this frequency. And the Parareal is this intermediate space that we're going to be experiencing through the people that lives in the internet, these people that is building their livelihoods in spite of the platform exploitation. Today we're going to have the first one, which is with the documentarian Joe Hunting. We were going to have like the screenings of the first episode and then a conversation with them that will happen in virtual reality. And I think like, the best person probably to explain what is the Parareal is Cade, so I let him to him.
Thank you, Barbara, for the kind words and for the introduction. Thank you all for being here. You might not recognize me. I'm Cade from the New Design Congress, and in this form, I go by the name Shibko. With me, actually behind the camera here, is one of my co-conspirators, Ellis, who goes by the name Lightly in these spaces. In the beginning of 2020, when we started the New Design Congress, it was just before the pandemic. And as lockdown hit, we started being involved in roundtables and response, both from our background in digital security, but also because the New Design Congress understood in our research the idea that infrastructures, especially digital infrastructures, were these forms of consolidations of power. And so this pandemic, which basically accelerated the tyranny of austerity economics and the atomization of the gig economy and sharing sort of platform-based economics that had started a decade before, people needed to respond to that. We needed to respond to essentially the greatest economic pressure that had ever been seen, that had spread from labor jobs across the creative classes, across the working classes, including, of course, the creative industries. And what we saw as we were involved in Zoom calls and roundtables and writing papers and experimenting with ideas is that a lot of what was being discussed was speculative and could have been really useful, a lot of great ideas, but a lot of things also were things that would exist 2 years from now. And people needed to be paid today. People needed to pay their rent during lockdown. Certainly a lot of people weren't getting the help they needed. And so at the same time as we were in these spaces, listening and trying to understand this, we were also seeing that in the other research that we're doing into internet subcultures and so on, there were all of these groups that seemed to not be as affected by the pandemic. These were close-knit groups that we were either participating in or watching from afar. And in all cases, they were people who were able to transact. They were artists who had the ability to make rent, whilst people who were also artists, but maybe not in these same communities, were struggling or falling below the poverty line. And so we began to wonder, well, why aren't we looking at these groups? What could we learn from these groups? What could we learn from these systems? Do they really have this solidarity, this resilience that we're looking for? So we started to put together a research proposal and went for grant funding, and nobody funded us. So we decided to do it ourselves. In 2021, we began to meet academics and content creators and game developers and musicians and all these groups of people who all had this one thing in common, that they had this ability to survive and in some cases even thrive during the pandemic and its effect, and weather the effects that it had. We did 4 episodes, and then we got vaccinated. We put the project aside and we went outside. We thought that perhaps things would be over and that we might revisit this a little bit later. That was in June of 2021. By September, of course, Mark Zuckerberg announces his vision for the metaverse, and then suddenly every single person is talking about the metaverse. The metaverse is a bullshit term, okay? It's another word for platform. It describes basically product, and when you think about things in terms of a so-called metaverse, you're basically reducing the ability to think of things systemically or more broadly and start to think through the requirements of the platform itself or the platform operator. And this was really, really obvious in the work that we started to do. We need to think beyond those platforms. We can criticize them, but we need to think beyond them, beyond these terms, metaverse or platforms or all these sorts of things, to understand what could be possible. What we found in the research that we'd done is that a lot of these people who had built these networks of solidarity and weathered the crises so far had kind of done that, because they had understood this concept that we call the parareal. What is the parareal? The parareal is a third space between the digital and the real. Exists when these two worlds collide. It's Zoom brain. It's feeling nervous when you give someone your cell phone. It's what I'm doing right now, here on a stage, making sure I don't fall off, keeping tabs on the corners of my room so I don't bump into a wall. But it's also the ways in which people understand these technologies and rewire them and make them useful for themselves. The parareal is platform agnostic. The parareal is a space of understanding how your experiences yourself is influenced and affected not just by the people around you in a real world, but also in a digital sense. And so I'm thrilled to share with you the first in a series of research interviews that we're doing called The Parareal, Finding the Future in Unexpected Places, because we believe that in order to understand the real, tangible solutions for the future, we first have to rethink how we understand this space that exists between our two worlds.
It's weird, okay? I get it's weird.
I love being here with you. I guess I just took this leap of faith simply because it looked like so much fun. I really like the social aspect of being online, but I don't really like Twitter, I don't really like Facebook, of where it's like just text. That's less personal. Yeah. And VR chat seems to, and I only play VR chat, by the way, VR chat seems to be like this middle ground of being like around people, but at the same time like being online, so it's not like too intrusive.
Like 90% of the people that are on VR chat are 25 and younger, because they're exploring the new foundation of VR, because nobody knows what VR is going to be, or the medium of VR. They don't know, like, how do you sell VR? But the generation of, the age group of people that have the most time on their hands and are, the most energy are young people. And so they're going to take this medium and they're going to bring it up to mainstream. What's that going to look like? I don't know.
VR chat does things that we dreamed about as kids. They do things that we saw in like episodes of Ghost in the Shell. I've had friends from across, I've had American friends and German friends for years, but I now can physically interact. I can virtually interact with them in a way that just nothing else competes with.
experiencing your friends in VR is like on stimulation overdrive. Yo, let's go to the Japanese flower gardens and with the cherry blossoms. Bam, you're there. Yo, let's go play mini golf on the moon. Well, bam, you're there.
The space whale, here it comes. Look at the size of that thing. It's incredible. I mean, just look at that. That's incredible. This is like a typical VR chat day. You see a dog taking a bath, and that's it. I mean, that's pretty much it.
For us first adopters, we are literally on the frontier. I have no doubt that 10, 15 years from now, they'll talk about experiences like this, and they'll say, this was where it started. This is true We've always been an interconnected society since the dawn of the internet, but this is very real. You know the only complaint I have about this avatar, Cosmic? How small my boobs are.
Then of what, sorry?
I have really small boobs. Look really small. Okay, so definitely it's over 2 years, maybe
Easily.
2.5.
Yeah.
We've known each other longer than we've had our headsets, for sure. Yeah. I'm not transgender or anything, but I've certainly become very comfortable with identifying as a female. I don't know if I'd ever consider myself transgender or anything, but I do know that if tomorrow someone came up to me and said, I have invented a pill, it will turn you into a woman overnight, I'd be like, I could do that happily. If that sounds the same, if that is right. I'm much more in touch with the state of myself I wasn't aware of before VR chat.
Yeah, you can just pick, it can be anything tonight, I thought, oh, that looks quite cute. I'll wear that. Whereas a bloke's just like, oh, I guess I'll wear jeans and a plaid t-shirt, because that's my wardrobe.
It'll be weird, but I have no issue. I'm a really confident person. I'm pretty good at meeting people for the first time. And we won't be meeting for the first time.
I feel like, as far as like exploring sexuality, like on VR, I feel like if you're curious about another persuasion, this is probably one of the best places to do it.
I loved him. Like I don't know why, but it's just like those feelings are very strong, and I didn't expect it. But the problem is that now I'm thinking about like, oh wait, is this gay? Because now it's like even like gay culture. Like I don't like gay culture. I think it's flamboyant for no reason. Why can't I just love someone because I just love them? And I feel like I can explore stuff without in here, and I would love for it to just be normal. Basically, our dating on has been on VR chat, like in the VR sphere. It's weird. All of it's weird, and it's not something that's socially accepted yet, which is a shame because it can be quite amazing. Anywhere you want to go in the world, you're there. So when you cut to the real world and you try to date in the real world in comparison to it, it's just the travel time to get to the place that you want to do the thing. It's just frustrating.
Yeah, so actually my avatar right now that you're seeing is a 3D scan of me. I'm a PhD student studying clinical psychology, and more specifically, I'm very interested in how we can use social VR to treat mental health disorders, because I think that the power of connecting with other people is something that can help to prevent a lot of different disorders. So when we're alone in our room, we can put on the headset and immediately be surrounded by other avatars is extremely powerful for helping people with psychological issues and things like that. I more see the potential to focus the positive effects of VR chat, because VR chat is not built for treating these disorders, and yet it is sometimes treating those disorders. So if we can build something specifically that's designed to treat these disorders, then I think that the power can be harnessed in a way to focus in and really get people recovering, especially younger people, because I think VR in general speaks to younger people, but people of all ages as well. Will really benefit, I think, from targeted social VR interventions that treat these underlying disorders and things.
I don't know if I'll hug you when I see you. I don't even know if we'll like do a bro shake, like a bro, like a full arm length handshake or something. But I definitely won't bother me. It'll just be very strange for probably about 20 minutes.
You sort of know fine already, because
we've known each other over 2 years.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, he's still begging.
Yes, I am.
Here we go. I'm looking at it, it's your voice, and now it's like I've seen like a picture of you once.
Yeah.
Before.
Sort of walking up, so you sort of kind of already know them in a sense.
Yeah. It's fun to take the stuff that like in VR there's things that we log in and we want to do. We're like, let's do this today. Let's go look at new avatars today. Like as if you're going window shopping. Let's go look at avatars all night, and that's the thing we'll do. Yeah. Whenever we're in person, it's like I can do normal things I do with other people. Yes. Like we can go drinking, or let's go to the pub, or you know, stuff like that. Which is weird. That's weirder than the actual meeting. I think actual camping, like
back to basics.
Yeah, there will be a fire.
Yeah.
And tents.
And cold nights.
Very cold nights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not warm down here.
You know, you're connecting people from all across the world, and then I never expected with a guy. Is that weird? Yo, you can answer this one. Why'd you tell him about it?
No.
Yo, why'd you tell him about it?
He thinks it's so funny. Once upon a time, which wasn't very long ago, I met this other VR chatter who most of the time they're on here, they're intimate with other people. And I said, well, how does that work? Because I don't have this whole phantom touch thing. It doesn't work for me. This person said, well, we actually use these remote controlled objects. You control very long distance. So you can be on VR chat, and if you want to be intimate with someone, as opposed to hoping that they just feel something that they most likely won't, you have direct control and you can do whatever you want on your iPhone with this object.
And all you want to do is touch him. All you want to do is hold him and hug him and just grab him, and you can't. So, I mean, this is kind of a way that I can.
I really believe in the whole, like, you should probably try something at least once, just because that's, I mean, it's interesting, right? I played VR chat for, you know, a couple months, 3 months, and I had never even gotten close to the whole, like, that whole crowd. But there's always going to be this crowd in any group or fandom or whatever that kind of brings things to that level. But since this is
it's the ultimate emotional experience. Most people, they want it, the person that they love, they want to have a good time.
Oh, of course.
And that's all it is. It's weird, okay? I get it's weird.
You get it. It doesn't really matter. See, that's the thing. Normally I would be so worried about being in a documentary, but I don't know. You got to take risks. You got to take chances. You can't really just be too timid your entire life. Otherwise, you miss out on things. And I find that most of the people that are on VR chat are groundbreakers. They're people who, because VR isn't really like an easy thing to come by. You have to know that you really, really want it when you get it, because it's not a light purchase. But most of the people in VR that have VR are usually so unique and have that same mindset that everyone's just friends. Everyone that has VR gets along. Come on.
It's trailblazing.
Hey Shipko, do you want a bite to eat? Have you eaten today?
I didn't actually know that there was a barbecue in this shot.
I'll bring some over. Let me take a seat. Oh, hold on, here you go. Here's yours.
Thank you.
Got it? Don't drop it.
I got it.
You don't want,
This is
and
great.
you don't want a sandy meal.
This is the first scene in the film, right? Like, this is where the two Shiba, the couple, hang out. I think it's a really important scene. Like, the very first moment in the film is actually the first lines kind of set the tone for like the kind of work that you do, and it's such a vulnerable moment that you caught.
Yeah, I think. Well, I definitely wanted to open on something that felt romantic and intimate and kind of quiet, and I liked the idea of including the sound of a world, and you hear it and it's very warm and cozy, and then when you see it, it's silent and quite confusing. And so I like the idea of a fire crackling. This world in particular was not one that I found. It was one that the Shiba dogs that Wider Screen follows, they showed me this world. It was their world that they go on dates in. I think immediately helps explain where we are and the context of the people that we're going to meet before we meet them, because the film does follow young people.
Yeah. Can you reflect a little bit on meeting the Shiba dogs and what brought you to film them in the context of what you've just said, their desire to be Shibas, and also I guess that intimacy that they had in the piece. How did you kind of come across them, and what made you realize that they were representative of the kind of way that you the world that you see within these spaces?
Sure. The first time I met the Shiba dogs, you actually see it in the film. And a smooth octopus, who's in this kind of anime girl avatar, is describing a typical day in VR chat, and one of the Shiba dogs is taking a shower. And that was the first time I met them, was that day. And I remember speaking with Smooth Octopus, the creator of that world, and just glancing over and seeing them so intimately cozied up together, and their physical relationship with each other. They weren't saying anything, but their physical relationship of just being together was so inspiring to me. The relationship that the Shiba dogs in A Wider Screen had, them, and also the relationship that Cosmic and Dutch, the two best friends who we meet in real life, the comfortableness to be with each other, and the physical nature of their relationship in terms of gender is something that is at the heart of all my work. I think embodiment, the word embodiment, I kind of was obsessed with that when I was making a wider screen, and have been kind of interested in that word and just the context around that in terms of my work for since now. I'm constantly interested in that word.
And that presence, I think, is primary to part of this discussion about identity, and also I think, exactly what certain these kinds of experiences in VR platforms offers as a alternative to the kinds of presence that we see, in more, I guess, flattened digital spaces. Can you feed them?
No, I was just thinking, how great would it be if you could feed them? I think, obviously, so this world I made the film in 2018, so this world is actually quite outdated now. There's a huge amount of things that we can do in VR chat. You would be able to feed the fish in many modern worlds, but considering this is quite old, we cannot feed the fish here, unfortunately. But they're still very cute, and we can still enjoy watching them. Yeah, and this was an important moment in a wider screen for me, just to in terms of being with the characters for a moment of just kind of ambience and understanding the space that they're in a more physical sense. I felt like this fish tank gave a lot of weight to that, because it's easy to get lost, I think. Welcome.
Hi.
It is very Studio Ghibli, isn't it? I really enjoy Studio Ghibli, so, no doubt. I really enjoy this world. Should we go and explore this puddle-filled
please.
Ghibli world? Okay, let's take a walk.
This is
just here.
This is really gorgeous.
Yeah, this is the end of the walk. It's a short walk, but I think walking amongst those flowers and seeing yourself in the reflection here, if you can pan the cameras down, it is a magical experience to look down and see your virtual avatar. It's so much fun. It's so playful, and I think kicking and splashing in puddles, brings back a kind of childhood joy, at least for me. Maybe that's a very English thing, and that's why I think this world is really special and really helps me connect to a part of myself which is very happy and utopian and joyful. I could go to my wall and do a immersive lean. Let's do an immersive lean. Okay, here we go. Immersive lean. Oh, just be careful we don't fall too far. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this immersive lean. No, I think actually it works. Does it work on camera? The pose?
Some might call the space that we're in hyper-real. I would disagree with that personally, because I think that these kinds of spaces are more... they're more... surreal in a sense, because there is an element of exaggeration to them rather than a hyper-real quality to them.
This space, I would not describe it as a hyper-real. environment. I think it's very dreamy. I think it's got like an animated quality to it. And so when you meet your friends in this space and you have an interaction, those connotations, I think, come with that, where you have a kind of cinematic quality to your discussion because you're in this surrealist world. I think that comes with surreal environments. In comparison, if you compared this to a hyper-real world, I think maybe it'd be worth mentioning that more of your real self might come with you in those environments because they feel more like real life. I think in spaces like this, maybe your virtual performative self comes out more because it is so unreal.
When you think about the space that we're in, especially because of the way in which the ability to gaze upon oneself in a different form has a quite profound effect. I wonder what it is like for you to have that kind of permission for a more playful self to emerge.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, which I need to consider. I think when I'm in this world, when I'm in world with other people, their avatars help define the feeling that you have, the atmosphere that you're creating. My avatar, I feel like, suits this world that we're in very perfectly. And if an avatar comes in and it's quite realist and walks in this space, you might lose a sense of wonder that you once had. But I think that's kind of beautiful. I think a messy environment with loads of different aesthetics going on is one of the best things about VR. You're in a completely unpredictable environment. It's complicated. I don't know how to explain how users entering a space can affect... Well, I mean... It's the feeling that I think that's the best way I can put it into words.
This world is really gorgeous, by the way. I'm like completely distracted the whole time I'm trying to talk to you.
No, that's good. It's really nice, isn't it? My camera is...
Sorry, I'm confused again. Not confused, I'm distracted.
That's okay, you can let yourself be distracted.
You can go this way.
No, we can't go too far. Oh, look at this. Secret puddle.
Oh, and it's really...
Whoa! Look at this. Oh my gosh, I did not know this existed. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna be filming here. I want to talk a bit about the journey from desktop to VR, because that was a real process for me in learning more about film and also directing the cast. But I think there's also a lot of interesting changes that happen socially with going from desktop into VR. And so I think we could talk about that, and I thought we could have a game of golf over that conversation. Mini golf.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it. Mini golf.
All right.
Hilltop Meadows. Let's do it.
Yeah, going from desktop to VR was a huge step. I was investigating what the experience of VR was like and talking about it with people and really trying to understand the space, and my imagination was completely flooded on what that must be like. And so the first time trying it was massive. Everything that I considered about the space and was interested in was true, and it was happening, and it was as real as I had heard it to be. Or too weak. When you're in VR, your social presence is much more defined, and you feel like you're standing in the room with someone, you're standing in the world. When you're in desktop, there is a disassociation that is present in the way that you know you're looking at a 2D screen.
Do you want to take another shot?
Yeah, I do want to take another shot.
We have this shared experience within our organization of people using VR from desktop. You become very aware of what you're missing out on when you're not in VR. And there's very much an immediate feeling of understanding of the limitations of the hardware inputs that you have. And so there's this kind of interesting journey that I think I see, where you started with film in the real world, and then you came out of that into VR. How does that feel?
It's obviously really tough when you are used to filming.
I definitely understand how these spaces that are highly creative have this element that helps with the art direction or the settings of films. You mentioned earlier that like the worlds are characters, and that's definitely true regardless of whether you're filming in VR or on desktop. But your films are based around intimacy, and that's the value of what you see in virtual reality. And so can you reflect a little bit about those dynamics of someone gaining access into early adopter identity and intimacy in these spaces? Did you just sink it? Nice shot. Well done.
Yeah, no, I nailed it.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased. I mean, probably the best shot of our game so far.
Amazing. To finish my question, how does that work? How does the dynamic of being on desktop, you have this barrier between you and the other players, which is then, as you mentioned, kind of broken away by the introduction by you getting VR?
I think it was very tough, because I do think that I don't wish to discriminate VR desktop users, of course, but I do think that a lot of VR users, when they see desktop, there's obviously an understanding that they're getting a flat, kind of slightly lesser experience. Understanding that, I just was very honest in my introductions to what I was doing, and very honest in my voice, and I was very careful around how my voice was tonally, where it was tonally, and what I was saying and how they'd interpret that.
So your voice became an interface.
Yeah, exactly. My voice my voice was the interface. And it's like that, currently in VR as well. But I also speak so much with my body, and it's easier to be with someone when you can feel them. And I worried people couldn't feel me in desktop. And I don't think they really could feel me, because I was a robot too. My avatar was a robot, so I was just this very stagnant robot with hopefully a very warm voice. I'm very sorry. We'll have to pause for one moment. My real life doorbell is going off, and I'm the only one in my household currently. So I'm going to have to go and let them in. Sorry. That's a really interesting question, though. And it made me realize something. I hadn't realized what I just said until that moment, so thank you for that. I'll be right back.
Lightly, are you seeing this?
Absolutely.
That's terrible.
Oh dear. I'm back. How contorted and twisted was I? Oh no. So let's explain my contorted body. I'm in full body tracking, as we've talked about, so when I go take my headset off, my head stays in one place and my body goes in another place. Thus you get some horrible movements. Sorry about that.
This is kind of a really good example of the work that we've been doing at, that was a bad shot, at New Design Congress around this idea of what we would call aesthetic flattening. And this is this concept that manifests in a number of ways. In the public sort of understanding of it, it really looks like what you would call like Zoom brain, where people get tired from being in a 2D space. So if you think of a keyboard and mouse interaction, that's like the lowest possible resolution that you can kind of see, because it doesn't really represent. Oh, that was a good shot. It doesn't really represent anything that you see with real life interactions. You know, a lot of people talk about video games as being a starting point for getting over this kind of aesthetic flattening, or this decontextualizing of people's lives through digital space. But I don't really see that being the case until you solve the question of hardware. It almost seems that you kind of experienced that change firsthand from this aesthetic flattening, where you were an observer and very much an other in a space that has solved for these issues of deep like depersonalization or alienation, and you've actually kind of managed to find this creative space, both firstly as someone whose humanity has been flattened or who has been compressed by the keyboard and mouse.
I've never...
Was that question confusing? Or
No,
did that make sense?
It makes sense. It makes sense. I think I've never analysed so deeply into the experience of change. I think it was as drastic. That was a good shot. That was a good shot.
Not bad.
You can finish it off. Good lineup. I think it is a drastic change. Yeah.
Check that shot out.
Yeah, amazing shot. Well done. Almost as good as my point blank putt. Yeah, I think what you're saying is very true in this situation of going from desktop into VR. When I left desktop and came into VR, I spent a lot of time just trying to find myself in the space all over again. But coming into VR, you're not talking to people from your own body. You look down and you're not in your own body. I was aware of it in desktop, but I'm more socially present and aware of my body when I'm in VR. And I think that changed the way that I spoke to people. There's something really beautiful in this world, which we haven't pointed out yet, which is something that you can kind of interact with if you're in VR. And it's the light coming through the trees. There's these beautiful God rays that come down through the trees. You can just see them up here on my camera. And if you're in VR, you can put your hands through them. And it will move around. And that's just something that, is a beautiful interaction that this world offers outside of the golf.
In some of the work that we've been doing, we've looked a lot at the role that interfaces play in this cratering and depersonalization of the self. I see interfaces as kind of like cars, and I see the way we interact with each other is similar to bouts of like road rage, where people don't see people, they see the cars. How do those dynamics change when VR is the primary medium?
Let's take this shot and
take the shot.
Hope for the best. Look at that.
Oh!
Very pleased. The difference with VR is, like I mentioned before, you are in a body and you feel yourself standing next to someone the same way that you feel yourself standing next to someone in real life. You can come across some really poorly behaved people, and they're like verbally aggressive ghosts. And in my experience, I don't wish to discriminate desktop users at all, but those people who are aggressive are in desktop. And I think it connects with that idea we were discussing earlier about feeling like you are present in the space and have a body. It's so much easier for people to disassociate themselves from the space that they're in and indulge in the aggressive behavior that they're indulging in.
One of the Shiba dogs in the end of the film talks about phantom touch. Could you describe phantom touch and maybe perhaps how that might connect to what you're talking about between desktop users and VR?
Yeah, very good point. Phantom touch is when you feel someone's tension over you, but in a virtual sense.
Your brain interprets it as real touch.
Exactly. Yeah, so it is a kind of just a psychological trick. In desktop, none of that exists. And yeah, maybe there is a difference, in that physical sense as well as an emotional sense. Let's say, oh, I've taken my shot. Oh, I just need to finish it off, of course. An easy shot. We'll see. Oh no, it's the classic mini golf curse. 3. 3's good. 3's a crowd.
We've kind of hinted at this for a while now. You have a new film coming that delves a little bit deeper into virtual reality and VR chat.
Yeah, the film is called We Met in Virtual Reality, and it is a very poetically led documentary that has been on my mind since making a wider screen, and really since coming into this space. It's the film that I've been really dying to make.
I get the sense from the trailer and from your work that it's a further exploration of the journeys of self that people have when they discover virtual reality and move into the space and embrace it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of moments, well, a lot of the cast, I should say, are people who are learning about themselves and going through kind of moments of transition. And that can be in regards to their gender, their sexuality, the relationship that they found themselves in, or in a less emotional sense, the film follows a lot of dancers, because dance is very popular in VR, and how they've learnt to dance and how they've found a new form of expression to help give themselves and help find themselves with. Not how this technology is in a technological way, but how this technology is affecting the way we interact and learn about ourselves and other people.
On the one hand, we've talked about the sense of being on desktop disconnects you from these spaces. It's only once you enter with the hardware that you become much more in tune with it, or it becomes much more real in a sense. But then, conversely, the stakes are lowered. So even though you would think the logic here would be that the stakes should be higher, because this is closer to between phantom touch, between the social norms that are reintroduced, the idea of seeing the understanding that there's a person there, and that it's no longer just how you present, but also how people perceive you. All of these are true, and yet somehow what's captured in your work is how all of that can be true, and the stakes are lower to then explore really transformative stuff for people. And I find that, I think that's really, really poorly understood in a general sense. And it's, I think, a big part of what I find so appealing about these spaces and also what we can learn from them in terms of identity and the parareal and finding the future, if you like, in these unexpected places. And in the case of this kind of work, it really does come from this seeming contradiction between how VR and this immersion brings the self to the world, and yet the stakes of all of that are completely reconfigured. What are you most hopeful for as we come out of this immediate time that we're in right now?
I think coming out of the situation we've been in real life and a very intense production in film, I hope that there is more acceptance in the future, that we just accept each other more. Here, everyone is accepted for who they present and what they present, and I'd like to see that in real life.
What is some of the things that you fear about these spaces in which you've found yourself creatively and personally so involved in?
I think my only fear is that the communities that currently exist in VR, the ones that are driven by people who are completely passionate and are very driven about what they're doing, and there's no monetary reward for what they're doing. It is for people that they will get trod on by people who do want to make money off the system and create an economy. I just want the communities, like prefabs, the world building community, like Helping Hands, the sign language school in VR. There are so many I could mention, all the dance clubs. I want them to be running the economies that grow here. I think that's my fear.
Would you say that the fear is that the economies become more like the real world economies?
Yeah, that is the fear.
I feel like I've been on a really long road trip with you.
We could have done that. We could have gone on a road trip, but it would have been tricky to film.
It's so amazing to talk to you for so long. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been nice to travel, play some golf, reflect on some of the early worlds that I found myself in, and find myself in one that I found recently. Yeah, I'm glad to have shared the moment with you.
What's your Twitter or your website?
Oh, my website is joeahunting.com and Twitter is @joeahunting.
Thank you. This has been an amazing discussion.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Lightly, for being.
Thank you, camera.
Thank you for being an excellent camera operator.
Oh. Now we're going to continue with a Q&A with Joe Hunting that is going to be joining us in VR, and at the same time we're going to start setting up, and this continues hybrid completely. So wait with us 2 minutes until we put the chairs, and then we're ready to go.
screen.
How's my, oh, good. I don't look very good at all. I'm doing a thing. Yeah. Oops. Sorry. We lost the base station, Ellis. No, we're good. We're good. Right. We'll be good in a few seconds.
I'm just entertaining the audience slightly.
Just doing some stupid magic. All right, there we go.
Okay. That's strange. Do you want me to keep talking so you can diagnose? I can carry on.
Test.
Do you want me to do a test? This is Joe speaking. That sounded promising.
Okay, we're good. I gotta go back to, all right. Let's do this.
All right. Sorry about the delay. Technique is a bit complicated today. I'm in this weird posture so I don't disturb that motion capture that is capturing Cade. So let me introduce you to the New Design Congress. This is the two parts of the New Design Congress. This is Cade Diehm and this is Ellis Jones that are joining us half live, half we're experiencing what is actually the parareal. And in the other side we have Joe Hunting, which you have seen the first episode, so you would probably recognize him by the avatar. So we're gonna go a bit of like a Q&A, some questions that arise after watching this first episode, and then we're gonna open to the public. We don't have a lot of time and also we have some DJs waiting for us later. So let's get to it. So I'm gonna start with the first question as an icebreaker. A bit of like, I had one of the first conversations that I had with Cade, the very first time that we met, I talked to him because I really like the parareal because he holds these ideas of like authenticity and honesty and intimacy, which actually is normally not the words that you usually would use to describe VR. But precisely that's why they makes these both projects so unique, is precisely this capacity of conveying this very human experience through these technological means. And of course, this is very interesting and reverberates with many of the projects that we're going to be doing at CEO Berlin. So I would like to ask you, why did you start doing this project? What was for you? What do you think it needed to be said? And why did you start the project and talking about these ideas?
Yeah, I mean, there's a very large amount of answers here. It's a range of different things. I think at the core, what New Design Congress is trying to do is push for new ways of thinking about infrastructure and how we interact with it. And I think that the really important part with this is, with VR, is that it's incidental, for example, that this is a VR chat sort of experience. What I think is we're trying to capture with this episode, with Joe and with the series more broadly, is that a lot of people think the internet got really boring with the consolidation of tech platforms, and the internet is really, really weird. And I don't think it's a great idea to trust people who think that the internet is very boring, because as a result of that, there's this entire subsurface of really interesting material, interesting interactions and things like that that are happening. And I think it comes from a desire to to show that with new ideas, they don't have to be deeply academic or deeply scientific or very dry or boring. They can actually be very playful. And in fact, I feel like the best chance we've got at actually creating a future that isn't dystopic is through projects like this. I like to sort of think of ourselves, this might be a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit egotistical. I like to think of myself as like the anti-Charlie Brooker, the anti-Black Mirror. I think that's what we're trying to do here, yeah.
Joe, would you like to tell us why did you start your project? How did you start becoming a VR documentarian?
Oh, please, yeah. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be in this portal with you all and speaking to you from here. I love that you're the anti-Charlie Brooker. Okay. Yeah, I've grown, as you can see. In the video that you saw, I was a bit more baby-faced, but I've actually physically grown. And I think I look a bit smarter. Now I've made a feature film, I thought I should look a little bit more intelligent, so that's a decision I decided to make. No, I'm kidding. I just wanted to look a bit older, honestly. Anyways, my project really started with the creative inspiration in VR chat, seeing people create worlds of their own, seeing them create avatars of their own. That was the very first thing that really got me into VR in 2018. I love seeing everyone's expressions of self. And very quickly, I discovered the amount of human connection that people were finding and belonging in different communities. And I started reading articles about that and about how VR chat specifically has helped people through hard times and help people find socialization that they couldn't before. And very quickly, I started speaking to people about that experience and started exploring my interest in documentary, and that led to a wider screen, and that led to Club Zodiac, virtually speaking. And when the pandemic hit, it felt like the perfect time to really investigate what I was doing wholeheartedly and make something bigger and more influential, which is We Met in Virtual Reality.
I have another question that, of course, relates again to the project that we're doing at CEO Digital. Towards the end of the chapter, of the episode, you talk about these worlds that live only, these people that live in the VR chat, and they do this. This is a very community platform, and they are only doing these projects because they want to share knowledge, because they want to share with others their skills. And this is something that we see really enough often in traditional capitalism where we in our surroundings. So I wonder, of course, in the annual theme, we're talking about what are the other new values, what are the other values in plural sense. And then we see this VR chat as really an embodiment somehow of those alternative values. And my question is, why do you think we need these kind of spaces, and especially how could we make them survive, which I think is very relevant today?
Yeah, I think I agree. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's an extremely relevant question, and it's one that I intend to raise in my films as well. Less so with my short films, but certainly with my feature and my broader philosophy about my work. It's really important to me to represent the existing communities that are making their own economies and making their own systems and spaces to have creative freedom and push agendas that I think are important in terms of fluidity and freedom and being able to create art with no limit. I think VR chat specifically is one of the best social VR platforms for that. And because of that, I don't think it'll ever go away. I think creative freedom will be a subject of this technology forever. Well, I sincerely hope that it will be. And so, yeah, this space to me is extremely valuable, and I intend to continue pushing that agenda when it comes to the future of economy and the metaverse as well.
I think just to finish, like to add a little bit to that, just basically that there's an idea that people don't want to run their own servers. They don't want to build their own things. We built the previous Web 2.0 platforms are all about frictionless consumption, things like that. I think part of the appeal of VRChat specifically, but more broadly, independent game development and all these other services that have cropped up over the last couple of years, is it's a direct opposition to this idea that people don't want to get technical, that they don't want to get their arms deep into the systems that they use in order to express themselves. And I think that specifically is what draws me to what Barbara and the team at Sierra Digital are doing, because it's exactly that kind of philosophy that's coming through, combined with the economies, the new exploration of new economies.
I want to open now questions to the public. Is there anyone wanting to ask something?
I'm just going to ask a very non-artsy question, because I guess
We might need a microphone so Joe can hear you.
Cheers.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Speak up. My ears aren't big enough. Please speak up.
You hear me?
I do. Thank you.
Right,
I hear
cool.
you now.
So I'm just wondering, because you've obviously been working with this technology for a while, you've seen it develop, you see what speed it develops at. And okay, you said you're fearful of like the economy or business taking this on. I don't really share that, because I think it'll be great when office people and maintenance people and my mother can do that. But I also see that the setup is a bit clunky. It takes a lot of kit. It takes, you need to be like a nerd to do it. So how long do you think, taking into consideration how it's developed in past years, how long do you think until like can just turn my mother, or as I said, office people, maintenance crews, whoever, can just turn on their smartphone and use this technology?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I think a smartphone is one that I find it difficult to reach to. I think that might be a few years away, certainly, to the level where it's that accessible, though I do agree, I think it's coming. I think in terms of colleagues and office workers and people very casually jumping into VR, I think we're already very close to that, maybe within the next year with Meta. Although a lot of Meta's philosophies are heavily judged, their headsets and their systems are the most accessible. So I think when it comes to very casual social VR, I think that is coming very quickly. Also, those headsets, I'm talking about Oculus Quests, which I think, Cade, are you wearing an Oculus headset right now?
I'm wearing one right now, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. It's inside-out tracking. And so that's really not much faff with those headsets. And so in terms of technology, I would say we're very close to that level of accessibility. And I agree. I think it's wonderful that we'll have that level of accessibility for our older friends and family and colleagues who just want to jump in terms of what Meta specifically are pushing in their agendas with the economy is a bit more questionable to be, and that was what I was referencing when I was saying I was fearful.
To add to that, I'd like to sort of offer an alternative, like a challenge to what you were just saying there. When we think of the ubiquity of technology, it's been, for better or worse, the technologies that have been able to make what would traditionally be seen as feminine work or feminist work very, very useful. Like the idea of liberation of people who have to parent children, balance their budgets, cook dinner, study, things like that all at once. And it's a problematic framing for sure, because it implies a number of things. But what the laptop and the smartphone did was actually allowed people to do that. So it allowed the single parent, usually a mother, because the mother is the person that, like, we live in a society where housekeeping and other sort of house maintenance or maintaining the house is like seen as feminine work. That technology allowed you to multitask that. So you could actually parent your children and study or work a job or something like that simultaneously at the kitchen table or in your study or in your bed, something like that. I don't think headsets will ever be like that. I don't think the metaverse as a concept, this kind of VR immersive systems, I think it's demands so much of you that it actually will, by its definition, exclude those people who have to do that work as caretakers, as the sort of the heads of the households, or as people who have to parent children or take care of people or work multiple jobs whilst cooking for a family at the same time. So I do think that the problems, even though I'm standing here in this awful power real like clown gear, I don't think that's the problem that needs to be solved. And I don't think that Meta is capable of solving those problems either.
I think that's a really valid point, yeah.
Is there more questions, maybe? There's a person there.
That's a good question, though, by the way. Thank you. I can't actually see you, so there's like real life voices in my head. Just like out here.
So one thing I guess I noticed or I feel is that it is, and you definitely are like stressing this, that it's a very human environment and it's a very like anthropocentric environment, even if you like there are people who are dogs or foxes or such. And I wonder, you mentioned like the positive sort of effects of that embodiment and everything, but I guess my question is, now that one has an environment which is sort of infinitely sculptable and also a perception that is like designable in so many ways, is there also sort of experimentation in a social sense of sort of completely new types of sort of environments, like things that aren't maybe a consistent spatiality or a recreation of like environments that we more or less know from Earth, and then also if that then has an effect on the type of like socialization that occurs.
Maybe Alice, you want to?
So that's a great question. Yeah.
Is my microphone on? Maybe it's not. Hang on. So I can only answer kind of part of that question, really, but for sure, yes, in VR chat especially, there's a lot of worlds which are not particularly have any relationship to a real world equivalent. There's a lot of experimentation, and the reason for that is VR chat's built entirely by its user base. So it's a sandbox platform essentially. That means every world you see and every avatar that you see is made by an individual. Essentially, none of it is made by the game makers. So yes, it is a very experimental platform. Would anyone else add anything to that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I would really echo the words of Alice. There are so many abstract, trippy worlds that are created out of maths and really abstract art that you can go and be embodied and float through, and I think it can provoke very profound experiences, especially if you remove your avatar and you go into something completely different when you're in that world and embody something strange. In terms of socialization, I think it encourages play more than anything for me personally in my experience.
Yeah, agreed.
I think when I'm in those spaces, when I'm in spaces that aren't based in a reality or something that I can understand from my experience on Earth, it encourages me to be silly and almost bring out my child a little bit more than I would if I'm in a space like this.
There's one more question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about this monetization issue. I think it's quite an important one, and I find it quite funny when we're here in Berlin, in the screening room at least, where we're all obsessed by gentrification, and it's basically the same issue, isn't it, online? And I'm just wondering how you can actually meaningfully prevent that if you've got people like Facebook controlling the platforms. And I just had one other thing to add to that, which is a bit of a major issue, but is around toxic behavior online. How do you control that online in a constructive and meaningful way?
So I can answer the first part a little bit. Yeah. So one of the episodes that we're going to do in the Parallel actually goes into the economics of the hardware itself. And I don't want to give too much away, but we're speaking to a very, very talented VRChat black artist from Detroit who you know really well, Amos. And part of, I don't want to steal from the episode, but she dives into the costings of hardware and how, unfortunately, the Quest itself, this headset, has actually broken through that idea of gentrification that you're talking about. So in fact, what the Quest is allowed to do, and part of the reason there's been an explosion in VRChat participation, has been because that realm used to be gentrified and is now coming back the other way. And just the other thing on that, up until very recently, the most expensive computers you could buy, which were basically Apple computers, were also mostly incapable across most of their models of actually engaging in this space. It was the $700 massive thick gaming laptops with a $200 Quest that allowed you to go into these spaces and engage in them rather than a $2,500 MacBook Pro. And so what's fascinating about those economics is that they're the inverse of that. If you wanted to add to something and then talk about toxic behavior, yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I'd really echo your point. So I'm happy. I've just been thinking about toxic behavior. And I think that's a very important question, a question I get asked a lot. And I can certainly speak to VRChat. It's worth saying, first of all, that VRChat, the platform, does have built-in safety tools. And so if you are being harassed and, abused in some way or overstimulated, just in terms of sensory safety, you can block people and also reset avatars so you cannot see someone's avatar. And so you have a lot of tools at your disposal to keep yourself safe. But in terms of safety with people entering worlds into events and communities and how those are regulated and moderated and kept safe, that is ran entirely by the community themselves. And so it is the staff and the moderators of those spaces that are allowing certain people to come into the spaces and making sure that if someone is teaching a class or running a convention or hosting a talk, that someone is not going to enter that space and ruin it and cause harassment in that space. And to me, that is a very positive way of keeping safety. I think having a space regulated by the staff of the community and by the people who are running that event and not entirely being forced by the platform or by the entity that are owning the place that you're in, I think is a much more safe and positive way of approaching that. So that's my experience in VRChat.
It's a balance between the enforcement of the will by the platform, which in the case of something like Meta or other platforms is usually like to eradicate queerness as well as toxic behavior, the kind of the irresponsible, combining of those two things as evils on platforms. In VRChat's case, they've actually gone the other way, where it's basically a free-for-all, where you can basically create anything you want if you have the ability to, and then you also then have the tools to defend yourself very, very well. On my computer, on this headset right now, where if I press it, I basically just seal myself off from everybody else. Everybody just disappears like a panic button. And those are tools that have existed in VRChat for a really long time, and not in others. There's a lot that we could learn about this from these kind of platforms,
and from the communities as well, who are safeguarding and creating tools in Discord servers and in the world themselves to create safety.
I think in this note, I think we all deserve a glass of wine now, and we should go outside and enjoy the DJ, because we actually had a DJ and a play who's playing later, like now. So we should all go and enjoy that.
Hey, we've got one more thing, right? The news.
Like Joe has some news. Perhaps Joe, you'd like to present it.
Are we finished?
Actually, before we go to that, just quickly taking the opportunity to say thank you to Barbara, to Christian, to all of the staff at CO Berlin.
Absolutely.
And for you for being here, and for the people that are watching online.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to the next 6 months. This whole program is going to be absolutely amazing. This is a really amazing initiative, and my leg is doing something really weird. Okay, we're back. Put it back. Thank you for putting that back. I'm
You're
very
welcome.
appreciative. Thank you.
I've had to
Oh
do
my
it a
God.
lot. Yeah, no, I'm trained.
Yeah. Looking forward to all the work that's going to come out in this program. Thank you, everybody. So the last bit of news.
Well, I'm very, very pleased to say that just the beginning of this week, I announced that We Met in Virtual Reality, my feature film, documentary filmed entirely inside of VR chat, is going to be premiering on HBO Max on July 27th, which is the first time VR chat will be on HBO. First feature film filmed entirely inside of VR to get a commercial release. So, if I'm allowed to say, a really exciting step forward in filmmaking in this space and VR in general. Thank you for the applause.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for your work and for your insight in this part and contribution to the Parareel. Thank you. Can we run the trailer? It should be like 1.5 minutes long if we've got it.
Making friends here is sometimes what saves people's lives, or what gets them up out of bed in the morning.
I am a teacher for Helping Hands, a sign language community here in VR chat.
Hand rested under our elbow, and we're gonna go like this. Christmas.
Slow. Quick, slow. If I had confidence that I could teach dance as a living in VR, I totally would do exactly that.
With a long-distance relationship, having VR is a game changer.
We are 5,000 miles apart, but we're gonna try our best to make it work.
This year has been really hard. The thing that has kept me sane has been VR and the VR community. I would not have weathered this without you guys. 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year!
You can be who you've always wanted to be, and you can, in a way, start over.
We can come together and support each other. This community means a lot to me, and I really want them to know that they're loved.
It's been a year since I've seen Kevin's IRL body.
Sounds
or
funny.
his IRL avatar.
Thank you. Kannst du es mir anmachen? Thank you all for coming. Let's celebrate CU Berlin. Let's celebrate the 22nd birthday. Let's have a party, a drink. Hope we see us soon again on CU Digital. Thanks a lot for coming.